Thank you so much for joining Sharebirds, the Essential Go-to-Market Show, tips and strategies where we offer short video content and interview-style conversations with global product marketing leaders. I'm your host, Yasmin Tarehi. Now, whether you're an early-stage startup or a public company, almost everyone struggles with the same question. What does it take to have a successful product launch? Today, I'll be talking to Adam Weigand, the Group Product Marketing Manager of Consumer Products at Coinbase, a place to buy, sell, and manage your cryptocurrency portfolio. And they have more than 56 million people in over 100 countries using their product. And as the Group Product Marketing Manager for Consumer Products, Adam and his team are responsible for driving adoption and growth of the entire retail product suite. And we'll dive into that in the show. So thank you so much for joining us, Adam.
Great to be here, Yasmin. Thanks so much for having me on today.
So just to kick it off, can you tell us from your perspective, what are some of the top takeaways that you have experienced as a product marketing manager taking a product successfully in market?
A lot of examples to draw from here. So this is a tough one. And fortunately for me, I've worked on a pretty wide variety of products and first-time launches in my career. So lots of top-line takeaways. I think number one, what might seem just blatantly obvious is there is never a one-size-fits-all go-to-market strategy. But there are a couple of core elements that I suggest to PMMs on my team, PMMs in my network to follow as they are getting ready for a successful launch. So happy to take you through a couple of those points. I think to start out, number one, I think what's most important is to test, learn, and validate. And what I mean by that is the foundation of your launch plan can be formulated on a hypothesis about your target audience. That's great. But that'll only get you so far. That's a starting point. Going to market on a hypothesis is obviously a lot more risky. So what I encourage people to do is leverage your third-party research tools, leverage your in-house research partners to help test, validate, and just ensure the core components of your go-to-market strategy with end customers are resonating. You'd be surprised how some people even skip this step altogether. Some of the things I include here would be the end customer value propositions, the positioning elements, like what's core to the product, the key messaging pillars, of course, which you're going to end up seeing in a lot of our go-to-market materials. So I typically like to run a lot of fire style research sessions to just get feedback from customers, both in a qualitative and quantitative sense, typically starting with qual and then validating with a larger group in a quantitative study. So that's typically a great way to start. Now, I think the second component that I mentioned would just be comfortable with having a very iterative launch plan. And you'll start to notice this happen as you bring more stakeholders to the table to discuss strategy, to formulate strategy, and to ultimately implement strategy. So when I'm writing a master brief to bring all these components together that make up a go-to-market strategy, I rarely get it right on the first draft. I really need to lean on my cross-functional partners to have a say and let me know that I'm being sanity checked in my own hypotheses around what direction we should go in. And there's quite a few stakeholders who can be involved in this, anyone from design to research to product, of course, legal, other marketing channel teams. I think involving them earlier in the process to pressure test your assumptions is a really effective way to iterate on that plan and ultimately save you some trouble down the road when you get closer to launch date to have to pivot. And then I think the third thing that I would mention, just to kind of wrap up this thought, I know it's a long one, is having a clear path to measuring success. Obviously, clear-cut KPIs and the agreement on the timing in which you can see significance in those KPIs is going to be really important. So I like to partner early and often with my data science partner, with my engineering partner to ensure I have all of the tracking mechanisms set up properly, from the standard UTM parameters to deep linking functionality to the actual launch dashboards that tell us and give us a signal on how things are actually performing. So those are some three learnings that I've kind of used to implement on every single product launch I think I've ever been involved in, whether I'm leading the launch, whether I'm supporting the launch. Those are some of the recommendations that I make every time.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the iterative process is something a lot of people have to get used to. And I'm just curious, because of your industry, fintech and cryptocurrency, there's not probably a lot of room for error. So how do you kind of deal with that in your particular industry? It's not like marketing tech, where if you create a product that the market doesn't like, you can kind of take it down, or you can iterate probably a lot more. There's a lot more flexibility. So yeah, I'm just curious, like, how do you navigate that?
Yeah, it's a really good follow-up question. And I think in my experience at Coinbase, one thing we've done a lot of to make sure we get the product right and also the marketing strategy right is to launch in waitlist phases. So drive demand and interest for the product, continue to tinker, toy, and experiment to get things right, build up more demand, provide updates to the customers on what's happening, and then launch in a manner in which you can involve more people. So we're continuing to tinker and toy all the time at Coinbase with this sort of stuff as we bring more of these crypto-powered financial services products to market. So it's evolving rapidly. We're always experimenting. I think that'll be sort of our moniker as things progress, definitely for the remainder of this year.
Awesome. And I understand that you work more on the new products, right, at Coinbase? It's not the existing product line, but kind of different products.
Yeah, a little bit of both. We're definitely a ship first company at the moment in terms of new product launches. The truth is our core exchange business is still really important. So my team spends a lot of time making sure that we are talking about the right things at the right altitudes, at the right amplitudes, and to the right customer cohorts. We have all sorts of different levels of engagement, as I'm sure you can imagine, across the retail user base. So we try to not really lean into one more than the other, but try to look at it more holistically and see where the opportunities are.
Very cool. So, Adam, I want to talk a little bit about team structure. Can you talk to me about how you create the right team structure for a launch? Because every launch is so different and has so many nuances and complexity. So, how do you think about team structure?
I think this is another one where there may not be a one size fits all solution, depending on the category you're working in or the size of the launch itself. But I think anyone listening to our conversation today would agree that the product marketing role in its essence is a very highly cross-functional one. So PMMs are probably no stranger to serving as a quarterback of a product launch in partnership with product, of course, and having that feel like familiar territory. I think, as I mentioned earlier, involving cross-functional groups, specifically decision makers in your initial launch planning, can go a long way to ensuring that alignment up front, to making sure there's no surprises when you get a little bit closer to that launch date, and also just to make progress on actually assigning ownership. I think that's sort of maybe the meta point I'm trying to make here. At Coinbase, we use a system called DRIs, directly responsible individuals, which empowers me to scale myself across a given launch plan, whether I'm working with design, engineering, product, research, marketing, legal. Each swim lane of a launch tracker will have an owner, and roles and responsibilities are handed out accordingly. Now, I'm responsible for connecting the dots across all those groups, of course, but having someone sign up to be that DRI, as I mentioned earlier, is really important for everything kind of working in lockstep, timelines working in conjunction and in parallel, and ultimately hitting deadlines and getting your work done. So I think organizing in that fashion, drawing clear lines of ownership, and then having PMM be the quarterback of all that has been a recipe for success for me.
Got it. And who is usually sort of the responsible person for the success of a launch? I think that question comes up all the time. Is it like product's responsibility? Is it head of sales? Is it the product marketing manager? And so I'm just curious, like, how does that work? And how has that worked in the past too for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've seen it work a couple different ways. And of course, depending on the structure of your organization, you are gold, OKRs, or KPIs a little bit differently. For me, and in most of my experience in product marketing, I have shared OKRs with my product partners. So what they are responsible for driving, I am in turn responsible for driving. So depending on the structure of the org, I've had moments where we carve out a smaller subset of that goal that is only going to be driven by marketing. So a good example of this could be for a Coinbase product like the Coinbase debit card, where perhaps product marketing is on the hook to drive application volume strictly through some direct response marketing efforts. Maybe we have a revenue target for the product overall, which we contribute to more holistically, depending on the function. But marketing can really drive impact by sending email, lighting up paid ads, really driving that application funnel. So that would be an example of kind of how you carve it out. Either way, I think laddering up and having a shared goal across a cross-functional team works a lot better than everyone having sort of their own goal and everyone's marching in a slightly different direction, but still the same direction, if you know what I mean. So shared OKRs, shared KPIs are also a recipe for success in my experience too.
Awesome. Yeah. It's such an interesting question because I think a lot of people always get it wrong, or not really wrong, but a lot of people kind of make up a sense of ownership with one person. And I think the shared KPI thing is really powerful because product management and product marketing are so aligned. Like I oftentimes say, like a product marketer is only as good as the product manager allows them to be sometimes, because we're so dependent on their ability to build the right product roadmap and also take feedback from the right stakeholders, right? So Adam, I wanted to talk to you about what has surprised you the most as a product marketer in your career, in your tenure. Just really curious about that.
Oh gosh, there's many things in which I could draw from here, but I think this is a good one because I think everyone has such a unique story in how they got into product marketing or how they evolved as a product marketer. And of course, everyone's going to have surprises along the way. I think that's so great about the function, though, just the variety of people we get to meet and work with, some fascinating stories. I think for myself personally, early on in my PMM journey, I came to the realization that on any given day, no matter the project that I was working on, my job could technically be part sociologist, part psychologist, part ethnographer, part marketer, part technologist. I mean, the list goes on. And there's very few roles out there in the marketing ether in particular that allow you to be so T-shaped, if I can use a familiar expression. The way that product marketing allows you to be T-shaped. So the great part about this role is you have the ability to go deep on a couple core areas, whether you want to be an expert in copywriting or user research or UX design or whatever it may be. But then you have service level expertise in so many other topical areas across marketing. I think that's what's unique. I think another key learning about the role that really kind of took some time for me to understand was you don't need a huge marketing budget to really drive impact as a PMM. I think when people think about marketing or product marketing, they think about ads and they think about brand. And these things are actually a little bit separate in my mind. I think where product marketing can have a lot of impact without having a huge budget is running freely with experiments, getting to know users better, testing different behaviors, testing messaging, testing value propositions of products. And then when you find that sweet spot based on what you learn from those experiments, scale it out. Then maybe you can start to add a little bit more fuel to the fire from a budgetary standpoint to make an impact. Now, there's still, of course, moments where you want to go big and you want to do some really hot above the line marketing. Those times will come. But generally speaking, PMMs can have a lot of impact at a very big level by just doing little things right, like experimenting, knowing your audience, and then building on that.
Yeah, these are such great points. I want to double click on this last point because, well, first of all, I think that the part, was it sociologist, part marketer, part technologist is hilarious and so spot on because I think so many product marketers are wearing so many different hats and also not acknowledged for that, for being so many things to the company. And I think the point that you made about product marketing, not necessarily having to have a big budget to make an impact, like that is so critical and fundamental to product marketing's value, is being able to, like you said, like run experiments, be able to kind of iterate, to like understand how things are working behind the hood, create the right infrastructure for go-to-market. But it's also something that so many CEOs and leadership teams don't understand and do not value. Because every time I work with a lot of different types of companies, and every time I come in, companies are always looking for demand marketers or paid ads, someone to come in and just execute. And it's very easy to know money in, money out if something is valuable, but it's also a short time kind of KPI. And I think product marketing is so hard to track because a lot of what we do is so qualitative as well as quantitative, but it's the behind the scenes, it's the person who's orchestrating things behind the scenes. And so this keeps coming up time and time again, is like, how do you show your value? Unless leadership teams are very aware, like not just emotionally aware, but like there's some level of self-awareness as like all these things actually ensure that people are not burnt out after a launch, there isn't resentment after launch, like all these things that matter so much more for the longevity of a company. So I'm just curious on your end, has it been easy for you? Like have the companies you've worked with for the most part acknowledged that, or have you been in a situation in which you've had to prove that?
Yeah, a lot of good points there, and agree with a lot of what you said. I think it really depends on the size of the organization and the existence or not of product marketing. What I've seen in a lot of early stage startups is it's all about growth marketing. Right? You're focused on acquisition, you're focused on getting the next X number of users to experiment with your platform. And that's a little bit of a different skill set than I would say core product marketing, especially on the consumer side. On core product marketing on the consumer side, if you already have an addressable cohort of customers to go after, that is a much different marketing skill set and approach. It's more engagement marketing. How do we squeeze a little bit more juice out of behavior that people are already exhibiting to the extent you can see it? So I think in any maturing organization, there's a little bit of roadshow needing from PMM leadership to say, here's what I can do that adds value to what you're already doing. And almost more importantly, here's what I don't do to a certain degree. You never want to say no to anything, but really defining the lanes, proving out the value, giving some tangible examples, and then just attacking the work and showing what you can do, I think is really important. And to my earlier point, you can still be a growth product marketer. There is definitely a lot of value there. And for certain organizations, that's exactly the right skill set you need. For a more mature organization, a Fortune 500 consumer tech company, it'll be a little bit different. You own a much smaller portion of the customer lifecycle, and you're focused on a very specific action. I think what I've learned, just to wrap up the point, is educating and road showing the product marketing function is still important in the year 2021 and beyond, to set a little bit context on the role, how it connects the dots to the rest of the marketing organization and sometimes the product organization and sometimes sales, depending on your role. I think that stuff is still conversations I'm having today, despite being in the function for quite a few years. And I like being an evangelist, to be honest with you. I like showcasing the function. I think there's a lot of value to be had at organizations, and I'd love to see the growth of the function over the last few years, and hopefully that momentum continues here as we progress forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Adam, we are unfortunately running out of time, but I still want to ask you one last question. So, we'll just go
Sure.
over, which is the product marketing resources. Can you recommend anything that has been helpful to you in your career? There's actually a lot of people who are really interested in becoming product marketers, a lot of new grads. I think it's like someone joked and said, this is the closest you can get to product without having a computer science degree.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic question. And as we just discussed earlier, there's a lot of winding paths into products marketing, and some of them involve a technical background and a lot of them don't. I think a couple of things that I really honed in on early days was really getting a better understanding of how important data is to anything that we do. So taking the time to get familiar with SQL or basic database management tools that allow you to be a little bit more self-sufficient and less reliant on your data science partner to run forward with audience segmentation, pulling email lists, some of those very basic tenets of foundational marketing. You'd be surprised how siloed some organizations are today, where you just ship that request over the fence to a data scientist and you never see the query yourself. Like, I encourage people to really get their hands dirty and get into that type of stuff. So I would encourage everyone to continue their, what I call, fingertippiness with data. That's going to be a skill set that everyone's looking for. And then I think the second one would be finding ways to do your own validation research. And these can be quick and dirty. They can be one-on-one conversations with friends and family who are customers of the product that you're managing. They could be a roundtable with customers in a little bit more of a formal way, or it could be a quick survey that you send out via Google Forms to a couple customers that are in your list. Finding ways to always be gleaning insights to really impact your roadmap is something that I continue to do to the present day, and always encourage others to go. So data and research, customer insights, knowing segmentation, those are two of the most critical things that you got to have in your tool belt.
Yeah, absolutely. The data science, like having access to data science and also being able to run queries, being able to understand that piece is something I think a lot of people don't do well. So thank you so much for your time, Adam. And where can people find you?
Yeah, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. We are constantly growing the product marketing team at Coinbase as well. Just a quick plug. My email address also is adam.weigand@coinbase.com. If you're interested in cryptocurrency or what Coinbase is up to, drop me a line anytime. I'm always happy to chat.
Awesome. And you can stay tuned for upcoming shows with product marketing leaders from startups to public companies as they share some of their best tips and strategies on the go-to-market process. Please be sure to send us a note, tell us what you learned, and tag us, tag Adam, tag Sharebird, tag me. And for those of you who are looking for more material on go-to-market, you can also check out my book, Product Marketing Debunked, on Amazon, or my other book, The Launch, A Product Marketer's Guide, or one of my articles on Medium. Details in the bio. Thanks.